Ever glance at something bright and notice something kind of weird just floating across your vision, maybe like a tiny little shadowy squiggle or like one of those transparent blobs that just vanishes when you try to look right at it? Happens to all of us, right? Well, get this. Today's deep dive is all about these visual quirks, like what even causes them, what they say about our amazing eyes and, how we see the world. So let's start with those floaters. Those little specks that seem to just drift across your vision. Turns out they're not like, actual bugs or dust in the air. They're actually inside your eye. Can you believe that?
Yeah, it's wild, isn't it? Floaters, they're really just these tiny objects, think like protein clumps or even little bits of tissue, sometimes even cells, and they're just floating around in the vitreous humor.
Vitreous humor.
Yeah, that's that gel-like substance, it fills up your eyeball. And what you're seeing isn't actually the floater itself, it's the shadow that it casts on your retina.
So hold on, it's like a miniature shadow puppet show happening in my eye.
Uh-huh, kind of.
Yeah.
And just like a shadow on a wall, you know how it looks way more defined against a plain background? Well, that's why you're more likely to notice floaters when you're looking at something bright and uniform, like a clear sky or like a blank computer screen.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But, gotta ask, are floaters like something to be worried about? Should I be concerned?
Most of the time. They're harmless. Our brains are really good at tuning out distractions. You'll probably notice them less and less over time. Your brain just learns to ignore them. But, that being said, if you suddenly start seeing way more floaters, or if you're seeing like big ones, the kind that actually get in the way of your vision, best to get that checked out by an eye doctor. Could be a sign of something that needs attention.
All right, so we tackled those mysterious floaters. Now let's talk about another one of those weird visual things you've probably seen. You know those tiny little bright dots that you sometimes see when you're looking at a clear blue sky? Ever notice those?
Oh yeah, you're talking about what's called, get this, blue field entoptic phenomenon.
Exactly. And here's the really wild part. Unlike those floaters, which are all about shadows, these blue sky dots are about actually seeing light, which is kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. How does that even work?
Okay, so picture this. Inside your eye, you've got these white blood cells, right? And they're constantly moving through these super tiny blood vessels right in front of your retina. And get this, these cells, they're actually pretty big compared to the capillaries they're traveling through. So as they're moving along, they actually create like a little gap in the blood flow just for a second.
So like a minuscule blockage.
Yeah.
But instead of stopping everything, it's like creating a tiny little detour.
Exactly. And you know how red blood cells, they absorb more blue light? Well, that little gap that the white blood cell makes, it lets a bit more of that blue light through, and then boom, it hits your retina.
And that's what we see as those little dots of light, those flashes.
Yep, like a tiny little localized burst of blue light going straight to your eye, and you might even see like a little tail behind the dot. That's just the red blood cells all bunching up behind the white blood cell. It's like a microscopic traffic jam happening right there on your retina.
So we've got those tiny little shadow puppets from floaters and those little light shows happening from our blood cells. It's wild, isn't it?
Yeah,
There's so much happening in our eyes that we're not even aware of.
right. It's amazing, and it really speaks to this bigger idea that what we perceive as reality is actually a really complex interplay of the physical world around us and our brains interpreting all that information. Those floaters and the blue field phenomenon, they really show that off beautifully. They're not illusions exactly, but they are kind of reminders that our brains are always filtering and processing information to create our experience of sight, our visual experience.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It actually reminds me of something I read. Apparently, some science museums have exhibits specifically designed to make the blue field effect even more vivid. So it's not just your imagination, right? It's actually a testament to how incredible the human eye is.
Exactly. And it really makes you wonder what other subtle, unnoticed phenomena are shaping how we perceive the world around us. What else might we be missing?
That's a great question and a fascinating one to ponder. Well, after learning all this, I know I'm never going to look at a blank wall or bright blue sky the same way again. Thanks for joining us for this eye-opening deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring those hidden wonders of your own perception.